After Ishgar joins the Eorzean Alliance, you travel to the Dravanian hinterlands where Y'shtola explains that she and Cid need your help to stop a primal that is made out of steel and is sitting in Lake Dalek because it is draining Aether from the land. After this, Y'shtola goes to consult Master Matoya and you meet up with Cid at the short stop where you're introduced to Backrix. Then Cid explains that a group of goblins called the Illuminati want to control all of the technology in the world and that they summoned the primal. After this, Cid explains that they don't have a way to get past the primal's barrier. So you ask Roundrocks, the only goblin to see the barrier rise 3 years ago, about what she saw. And she explains that the primal and their barrier appeared 3 years ago, but the primal disappeared, leaving the barrier behind, meaning that someone tried to summon the primal but failed. So Cid stays at the outpost to get more information while you help Biggs and Wedge decipher an Illuminati code but can't figure it out. This is when a treasure hunter named Mide explains the code in exchange for her going inside the primal with you. After Biggs uses the code to open the door, you and Mide go inside. After defeating a strong machine, Roundrocks appears because she wanted to explore Alexander too, so she joins your group. After this, you're confronted by the leader of the Illuminati, Quickthings, but one of his henchmen accidentally tells you about something called the Enigma Codex. After this, your group retreats. Then your trio has another expedition into the Primal with Cid, and this is where Mide explains that she is looking for the Enigma Codex, a book that contains the life's work of one of the greatest technologists to ever live, and that she has read it. And the book contains plans for a walking citadel. Then Cid figures out that the primal is in this form because the Illuminati read that book. Then Mide tells us the name of the primal is Alexander. Then your group goes deeper into Alexander by following one of the Illuminati until you run into Quickthings again. But he's accompanied by a kitten named Shanoa. Then he and Cid get into an argument, then he retreats. After this, Mide explains that if she can get to the core, she might be able to shut down Alexander. So after a short rest, you, Mide, Biggs, and Wedge go to the core and shut it down. But Quickthings arrives, but he doesn't care about you being there and leaves. So all of you leave immediately, only to find out that the Illuminati tried to steal Roundrocks' treasures, looking for something called the missing piece. But Cid and Biggs bring them back. Then Roundrocks talks about her favorite treasure, the glowstone, mentioning that she found it after the failed summoning of Alexander 3 years ago. Then she shows it to us, and Mide says that it's a part of the Enigma Codex. After this, Roundrocks asks you to give the glowstone to Mide to cheer her up, and you do. Then Mide explains that the Codex can only be opened by people who share the same principles as its creator, meaning that we need to make sure that the Illuminati doesn't find out about Roundrocks. So in the meantime, Mide distracts the Illuminati with the fact that she has the missing piece, because they're trying to revive Alexander, as Y'shtola tells us, because she sees the Aether being drained from the land. So Wedge activates a device to disrupt the Illuminati's communication, but he accidentally wakes up another part of Alexander, which gives us another way to enter the Primal. Then the game cuts away to Quickthings, who is holding a book saying that everything is happening as it was written. Then you go inside Alexander to disrupt the Illuminati's plans, but when you get back to Shortstop, Biggs and Wedge tell you that they saw Mide give the Illuminati the missing piece of the Codex and went into Alexander with them. After this, Backrix mentions that they found records of Ura treasure hunters who appeared around the same time as Alexander's failed summoning, speculating that Mide was one of them, and continues by saying that the description of the person who wrote the Codex 100 years ago sounds like Mide as well. But these accusations about about Mide upsets Roundrocks, so she runs away and Wedge chases after her. So you put all of this in the back of your head and wreak havoc on the Illuminati before they can regroup. When you get back to Shortstop, Mide is there and you and Biggs confront her. She explains that she gave the Illuminati a random rock and that she still has her piece of the Codex, so they wouldn't come to Shortstop. Unfortunately, she tells everyone that she taught the Illuminati how to summon Alexander and that she did this because she wanted to see her lover again, explaining that her ancestor wrote the Enigma Codex and that she, with her friends, strove to make the perfect world as it was described in the book. But when they summoned Alexander 3 years ago, it killed her companions and dragged her lover Dane into its core. So to stop the primal, she created the barrier, but the codex exploded as well. Then Alexander disappeared and she couldn't read the codex anymore after that situation. After that, Mide tells us that she believes Dane's soul is still within Alexander and that whoever has the completed codex can control Alexander. Following this, Wedge appears, telling us that Roundrocks has been captured by the Illuminati because they found out she can read the codex. So you, Mide, Biggs, and Wedge turn off Alexander's second core, meaning that they have no reason to keep Roundrocks because Alexander can't move. However, your group is surrounded by the goblins and QuickThinks knows that Mide has the last piece of the codex, so she runs away, but QuickThinks doesn't chase her. Then the platform Mide is standing on shakes and the last piece of the codex falls in front of QuickThinks. Then he and the Illuminati leave. When you get back to Shortstop, you tell Backrix that you turned off the second core, but he doesn't believe you, saying that you just left, leaving everyone confused. The four of you theorize that Alexander is disrupting the flow of time, which would explain Backrix's attitude and how QuickThinks is always one step ahead, with Mide thinking that the Illuminati has found a way to look into the future and manipulate events. After that, Sid and Y'shtola arrive, but before you can tell them anything, Alexander shakes, so everyone checks it out. Then Sid and Y'shtola see the Aether flowing back into Alexander. This confirms that Alexander can manipulate time. Then the game cuts away to the Illuminati forcing Roundrocks to activate the Enigma Codex and complete it. Then they start reversing time within Alexander so they can awaken all three cores. After this, Mide apologizes for everything she's done. Then you and Mide find Shanoa, who appears to understand you, and an Illuminati spy who claimed that Alexander's final core was activated. Then Backrix tells everyone that Roundrocks told him about a black kitten around the lake 3 years ago, which confuses everyone because if Shanoa was that kitten, she would be fully grown by now. But everyone puts that to the side for now because you go back into Alexander to clear a path towards Roundrocks and succeed, while Y'shtola tries to cut off Alexander's supply of Aether, but she fails. So Mide explains that she summoned Alexander 3 years ago with a horn given to her by a man named Travanche. After Y'shtola hears this name, she figures out that the horn is a relic that can manipulate Aether on a great scale due to her encounters with the man, and she believes the third core is using the horn as its power source. After this, Backrix notices QuickThinks spying on them, but he also sees another black kitten, leaving him confused. After this, your group enters Alexander and saves Roundrocks. Unfortunately, when she sees Mide, she rewinds time to 3 years ago so Mide can save her friends, but only Biggs, Wedge, Backrix, and Shanoa are outside while the rest watch from inside Alexander. Then Shanoa makes Backrix drop his journal recording our adventure. After that, everyone realizes that the Illuminati are responsible for the deaths of Mide's friends, Alexander appearing 3 years ago, and everything that has happened up until now, which causes Mide to have a mental breakdown and stay behind whenever everyone retreats. After a short rest, your group gets to the final core of Alexander, but it's too big to destroy. So Cid suggests that they bring Round Rocks back to Alexander so they can cut off the connection that way. Then Quickthings appears to gloat, but Shanoa makes him drop his book and jumps down to us. When Backrix looks at the book, he realizes that it was the journal he dropped in the past, which explains how Quickthings was always one step ahead. Then the game cuts away to Quickthings manipulating the Enigma code. After regrouping, your team tries to get in Alexander's control room to stop the Primal, but you're stopped by Alexander's true form. So you fight them, and after a tough battle, you win. After this, everyone goes to the control room, where Quickthings reveals that he never needed Round Rocks to use the Enigma code. Then Mide appears, telling us that whoever activates Alexander may die in the process. Then she kills Quickthings and Round Rocks turns off the last core. However, Quickthings gets up to try and reverse time, but Alexander ignores Quickthings and kills him for the last time. Then the Enigma Codex disappears, which makes Alexander unstable. However, Mide realizes that Dane has been within Alexander watching over her, and she realizes what she has to do. Jumping into the core of Alexander. Following this, everyone hears Mide's voice telling them to leave and that Alexander won't be a problem anymore. After this, the game cuts to Mide and Dane within Alexander. Dane explains that Alexander is a machine that wants to create an ideal world, but concluded that it consumed too much Aether. So after looking at many different timelines, Alexander decided to trust you to lead the world to the best outcome. So Alexander placed itself within a time loop so it wouldn't destroy the world. Then Dane reveals that Shanoa was created to make sure the timeline stayed on the correct path. After this, Mide and Dane decide to stay within Alexander's pocket dimension so nobody can ever use the horn to summon the Primal again. After this, you go back to the shortstop where you say your farewells to Cid and Y'shtola. Then you give Backrix a book Y'shtola said she would lend him. As he reads the book, he tells you, Biggs, Wedge, and Round Rocks that the book speaks about the founders of the Hotgo tribe being a boy and a girl with blue hair. They came out of a giant machine, with their names being Diane and Mide, and the drawings in the book look exactly like them, meaning that they get their happy ending when they're reborn in the past. And that is the end of the Final Fantasy XIV Alexander timeline. With that being said, if you want to see more timeline videos like this one, or video essays on your favorite video games and anime, like, comment, and subscribe with the notifications turned on. But with that being said, it's been Skipx and I'm out.